So in this video, one of a series of videos I've made explaining my thoughts behind what I would do in terms of 2024 pre-season planning, I'm explaining to you how I would use high-intensity interval training or HIIT, a term you've probably heard of, but in terms of what it actually is and what the benefit is, I'll explain now. So in terms of what it actually is, a person would run an interval, a distance longer than they could sprint for, at high speed or high intensity. When they get to the end of their interval, they would either rest or they would run back at a slow speed, low intensity, before repeating the process. So that's high intensity interval training, which is a really time efficient way to improve your aerobic fitness. Time efficient, it's a more efficient way than just simply running laps. And talking of running laps, I'm sure, like me, you've been asked by coaches in the past to run some laps, and some of your teammates go off like gazelles. It seems like it's effortless for them, and others, like myself, seem to be puffing soon after we started. So the question from my end is, how do we make the exercise prescription? How do we make the intervals appropriate for players at different levels? So those who are fast and quick get a good workout from it and a good adaptation. Similarly, those who are slower and less fit also get a good workout from it and good adaptations. And probably as importantly, that don't feel like they come last each every time. And the way I would do that is I would set up my intervals at different levels. So some might be further and shorter, and some might be shorter distances with more time, depending on the fitness level and the speed of the player or players that I'm working with. So then how do I work out those intervals? How do I work out the long, quick ones and the short, slow ones? I would need the players, plural, maximal aerobic speed and the maximal sprint speed. The maximal aerobic speed is how fast, I should say, they can run a reasonably long distance. And the maximal sprint speed speaks for itself. How quickly can they sprint? And there are various ways that you can assess or measure these things. But the two that I tend to use is a 1600 meter time trial for the maximal aerobic speed and a 40 meter sprint for the maximal sprint speed. And then it would look something like this. So for the maximum aerobic speed, I would measure out 100 meters on a field or the pitch that I was training on. So obviously if a player runs up and back, they'd run 200 meters, which is 1/8 of the 1600 meters that I would like them to run. And I must explain that this is not high intensity interval training. This is just asking a player to run 1600 meters as quick as they can, which gives me their maximal aerobic speed, which I'm going to use as part of the process to work out the intervals and the different levels of intervals a little bit later. And I'll explain how I do that in a separate video to this one. So this would look something like this. A player would start running, they run up, and they turn around and they run back. And obviously when they get back to this end, they run now 200 meters. But if you've got 16 players out there, how do you ensure that players are running the distance they need to be running and also capture their times as they're doing so? You imagine now you've got 7 players running in all at the same time. So what I tend to do is I put my phone on a tripod here and record the time from it. A big shout out to Patricia. That was her suggestion for me. So when the players run back in, they just have a quick look as they finish and remember their time. And then when everybody's finished and I've got my clipboard ready, they come over to see me and I record all their times down for them. So that's the maximal aerobic speed. What about the sprint one? I would set the sprint speed activity up like this. I'd have two cones set up down here, and then 40 meters away, a further 2 cones set up here, obviously. And I would set myself up here with my stopwatch, and on my command, I would ask the player to run as fast as they can between these 2 cones, continuing to run through the cone. So it would look something like this. Off they go, running as fast as they can, and there's me set up there with my stopwatch measuring how quickly they run. Now, it's not going to be as accurate as speed gates if you know what they are. If you don't know what they are, that's who I assume the majority of the people watching this would be. But at the end of the day, most of us who are watching this probably won't have access to speed gates anyway, so we just make the best that we can. And I would ask each player to do 3 sprints, having a reasonable rest in between. So probably get one player to sprint and the rest of the team to sprint and get them to sprint again, and so on and so forth till they've done 3 sprints. and I would take the best speed from that to give me their maximal sprint speed. So that's how I'd lay it out. The summary, therefore, is that it's a really time efficient way to improve aerobic fitness, but to try to make sure that the prescription, the intervals are appropriate for players at different levels. I'd encourage you to catch their maximal aerobic speed and their maximal sprint speed. So that's it from me. In further videos, I'll explain, once you've got those speeds, how I would use them to translate them into the high intensity intervals. But for the moment, that's it for me. Thanks very much for listening.